Well, in 1960, we moved to Enfield, and it wasn't very long after that I got to meet Jack. Jack would come up to our place in the kitchen and meet with my dad, along with Ron Smith. And many, many evenings they would be there talking about hockey, baseball, and football, and trying to figure out a way to make things better in Enfield and in East Hants in general, I guess, the community.
He was involved in anything in the Enfield area that involved athletics. Jack was central to, and people knew that. Go get Jack. Where's Jack? Is Jack coming? Is Jack coming? It was always, is Jack coming? When's Jack going to be here?
They built the rink in behind the church, built the rink, watered the rink, painted the lines in the rink, organized games, organized. Back then, this was before the new ice was in the Lance Arena, and he would be there constantly negotiating with the church so that they could use the power there to put the lights on at night, and then kind of calm the priest down every once in a while. Didn't like there was more people at the rink than there was at church.
After 2 years, Father Walsh, I believe it was, got a little fed up. Every time he tried to give his sermon, some of the kids were banging the pucks off the boards, and he just got fed up with trying to compete against the kids. So we had to move the rink after that down to Jack Gardens, and for the next 4 years, Jack pretty well looked after it by himself.
There's passive people and doers, and I can't remember a day when Jack would just sit there. I mean, from every day had to have a purpose, or he would, he wouldn't be happy. So I look back at Jack as a very, very active and doing, helped the community that he was fiercely Enfield, fiercely.
His example kind of drove us, and to just sit around and not do anything, was just not acceptable. That was a very key learning that we had, that was instilled in us at a young age, just by watching him, nothing else. He didn't really say that you had to do this or you had to do that, but you better be doing something.
First of all, I think people should know that Jack was a great manager and organizer. He formed a lot of great baseball and hockey teams, and he was a very good coach. And he spent many hours and coached many, many teams. I think that's the first thing. And a lot of the teams that he coached were winning teams.
He was obsessed with baseball, and he was obsessed particularly with the Legionnaires, and it was emotional. When they lost, he didn't take it well.
He enjoyed winning. I don't think he probably looked at getting beat too well, but he could handle it, because we didn't win everything, right? But he kept coming back for more with us, and yeah.
Enfield Legionnaires, senior baseball, but not just any other team. They were one of the best teams in Nova Scotia. 500 people at those games, 600 people. That was a lot of people back then. And I have to say that it was all Jack Garden. Jack Garden was the center. He was the core. He was the manager.
He'd go all the way to Spring Hill, pick up the pitchers that he needed from up there, bring them down, put a 3-hour drive, take them to the game. After the game, drive them right back home again. So he would do what it would take to make his team competitive.
He told you the way it was. If he didn't like it, he would let you know. And I think that probably got a lot of attention, that you had to keep, being as best as you could be.
He wasn't one that would talk any more than he had to, but when he did talk, you should listen. I know in baseball and hockey, he coached me for quite a few years, and when he said something, the players usually listened, because there were consequences if you didn't listen.
So he was a little bit like a George Steinbrenner and a Billy Martin all wrapped into one.
If he liked you, he was going to look after you, and it didn't matter where you lived within the community. But and that juvenile team was a pet of his, because he saw guys within East Hants that he felt that could move on.
Well, I started playing hockey for Jack in the juvenile league, and then when we were, then we went into the senior league, and Jack coached us there and looked after us, and really built a good team there, like with players, and you got to give Jack credit for that because he built our team stronger by getting them.
The juvenile team that Jack coached and managed, we had a lot of good players, and a lot of those players went on to play with the East Hants Penguins. So Jack was a builder in such that a lot of the players that played for him went on and played for the Junior Penguins, East Hants Junior Penguins. Jack was just tremendous. He put so much effort into building the facilities that we could play the different sports, mainly baseball and hockey, but he also had a bit of involvement in the football too.
When the football team they had back in about 61, 62 or whatever, they had 32 kids on that team. 32 kids that some of them couldn't play hockey or didn't have skates or anything like that. That was the only thing that they played. But 32 kids in the East Hants area playing on one team, and at a time when the villages weren't all that big. That was a big, huge testament for the volunteers and what it did for this community in East Hants.
Without Jack, there were a lot of kids that never would have got to play those sports. And without Jack, there were a lot of kids that did play the sports that wouldn't get to play in the level that they did. Jack was just a great guy, and we could have used a whole bunch more Jacks.
If he wasn't the coach, he was the manager, he was both. And it, all the way from the Eastern Senior League team to the Suburban League team to the hockey teams, both juvenile and border league, and the Wrigley midget team. I'd have to say that the 73-74 midget team, which was not the last team that he was involved in, but it was probably the crowning part of it, because all that team had all these kids from East Hants. That is what my father always strived for, even with in the ball and hockey. But he and Gerald Cole did a masterful job of putting that team together, making sure that they had a team as opposed to individual stars sort of thing, because there was players that were pretty good that didn't make that team. I can tell you when they went to EHSHOF and they were going around the ice up there, I think that's probably when it struck us that this is much bigger than us now. And Dad, of course, I viewed him as a constant professional. He always had his suit on, and he was always representing the community, representing the community of Nova Scotia, but also of East Hants at the time. And he expected that of his players as well. Him and Gerald both did. And it was all about, showing that there's talent here. And that was a big thing for him.
Well, when like I played ball and hockey for Keith Miller and Lance, and when I think about what Jack did for the community of Enfield with his ball and hockey, I think they were probably on the same comparison because, and you got to remember, Jack left us too soon, right? So we don't know what all he would have accomplished for the village, and I really feel he was a good builder because he had a lot of us young people playing ball and playing hockey. He probably kept us out of trouble too.
It's my opportunity to say some things about a man that was very important in my life and very important in the lives of many other people in that community, who wasn't just an ordinary guy. Jack wasn't ordinary. He was extraordinary. And I hope that when people who never knew him, when they are given an opportunity to consider his name, will understand that he was somebody who made a difference in Enfield and in the Hants East area.
I just think it's great that Jack is being involved, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to talk about it because it got me to think back about all the things that Jack had done over the years, and he was a tremendous asset. And I don't know how a man that had such a big family would find the time to do as much as he did for sports in Enfield, and I think it's great, and I think his family, his friends, and everybody should be very proud of what he's done for not just Enfield, but East Hants.
Myself individually and we as a family are very proud and honored to to have him inducted in the Hall of Fame. If there's anybody that we felt was more worthy it certainly was our father. And I know there's lots of people, there's a Jack Garden in every community, but we certainly feel that he deserved to be here a long time overdue.
2018 East Hants Sport Hall of Fame inductee, Jack Garden.